You know the exact rhythm of a Saturday morning school, right? You're just catching up on friends, reading a little news, maybe watching it like a dog video. And then, bam,
Oh, yeah, it completely takes over your screen.
right, it takes over. A massive row of shiny trucks,
Hmm.
a bright red banner, and this countdown clock that's just aggressively ticking away the seconds.
Yep, the classic ticking clock.
And the text is just, I mean, it's screaming at you in all caps like inventory blowout or payment relief event. Everything must go, and it's happening this weekend only.
Which is, it's designed to be a digital speed bump. You literally can't ignore it.
Yeah, exactly.
And to the average person scrolling, or even honestly to a lot of dealership managers who are just looking at their marketing output, it just looks like loud, aggressive advertising. It looks like standard automotive marketing.
Right, on the surface.
Yeah.
But the mission for this deep dive today is to really rip the hood off that entire machine. We want to unpack the actual truth behind those incredibly urgent automotive Facebook sales events that are just flooding your feed.
And we really need to, because it's a problem.
It is. Because when you look at the raw mechanics of modern dealership digital marketing, that whole huge sale this weekend strategy
Mm-hmm.
is actually, well, it's a highly destructive loop. It's doing serious, measurable damage to the very dealerships that are running it.
Which is such a fascinating paradox. I mean, when you think about it, we are looking at a system that has just fundamentally changed what a sales event actually means.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes, these screaming ads they're rarely built to solve a dealership's actual local business problems.
Wait, so what are they built for then?
Well, instead of solving real problems, they operate as this low accountability lead generation machine. It's a mechanism built like almost entirely for the vendors running them, not the dealerships paying for them.
Wow. Let's ground this in a little history first, because a sales event used to carry actual weight. Like if a dealership threw a massive event back in the day, there was a concrete structural reason for it.
That's the key distinction right there. Historically, a sales event was intrinsically tied to the reality of the business.
Right.
So the dealership had a model year changeover, meaning, new inventory was hitting the lot, and the old floor plan just had to be cleared out to avoid those holding costs.
Or there was an actual factory incentive from the manufacturer, right?
Exactly. Or maybe the dealership had a severe trade-in shortage and genuinely needed to acquire used cars to balance their lot. The event was a strategic response to a real-world inventory or financial condition.
But you fast forward to today,
Mhm.
and you look at these social media feeds, and the events are entirely detached from reality. I mean, they are just like API-driven templates.
They are completely divorced from the local market. I mean, the marketing vendor needs a campaign to launch just to justify their monthly retainer.
Right. They have to show they're doing something.
Yeah, the agency needs top-level metrics to report. The dealership's general manager is saying, hey, we need more leads to feed the floor. So the exact same creative gets recycled across entirely different markets in different states. The same claim your savings voucher funnel is used whether a store has like 40 cars on the lot or 400.
That's crazy.
It is. It runs regardless of the store's credit mix, their staffing levels, or, local consumer demand.
It's purely production masquerading as strategy.
Yes. And in the automotive marketing space, those two things get confused constantly. Producing a loud graphic and a lead form is very often mistaken for actual performance.
Okay, so let's call the thread on why dealerships keep running these constantly if they're just empty templates.
Yeah.
Because to understand the trap, you really have to understand the underlying mechanics of the platform itself.
Meta.
Yes, let's talk about Meta's algorithm, because it is the engine powering this whole false sense of success.
The first uncomfortable truth here is that Meta's algorithm is a machine learning masterpiece. It really is. It is exceptionally good at optimizing for the specific action you tell it to find. So if a media buyer asks the platform for clicks, the algorithm will go out and find clickers. If it asks for lead forms, it will find form fillers.
I always think of Meta's algorithm like an overly enthusiastic, incredibly fast golden retriever.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, so like if you throw a stick into a dark lake and yell, fetch, that dog is going to launch itself in and bring something back. But because it can't really see in the dark, it might bring back like a soggy piece of driftwood instead of your stick.
Exactly.
It did exactly what you asked it to do. It fetched wood from the water, but it's entirely useless to you.
The algorithm is literal, and what a lot of people don't realize is how it finds those form fillers.
How does it?
Well, Meta actively builds predictive models based on user history. It looks for people who have a track record of clicking ads indiscriminately without really reading them,
Oh, wow.
or people who just autofill their info into sweepstakes and giveaways. So the dealership is essentially paying the algorithm to target serial clickers.
And a serial clicker is not a car buyer.
No, not at all. A dealership does not need an influx of digital activity. I mean, it needs sellable opportunities.
Now, contrast that serial clicker with how you, the actual car buyer, behave today. Because Cox Automotive's 2024 car buyer journey research paints a very specific picture here.
Yeah, it's vastly different.
It is. The modern buyer spends over 14 hours shopping and researching for a vehicle. Over 7 of those hours are spent strictly online. You are looking at vehicle details pages, you're comparing local inventory, running Kelley Blue Book values for your trade-in, playing with payment calculators.
The modern consumer is incredibly educated. I mean, they know market day supply, they know interest rate trends.
Yeah.
So imagine the collision that happens here. You have a shopper who knows the exact trim level and fair market value of the SUV they want, and suddenly they're served a generic, template-driven ad screaming at them to act now for a mysterious payment relief voucher.
It's insulting. You know, you've done the homework, and the ad is treating you like you just fell off a turnip truck.
It creates a massive information gap. The generic event ad assumes the buyer is naive and purely emotionally driven, but the buyer is actually highly analytical.
Right.
And that exact gap between an informed, serious shopper and a generic, overly aggressive ad is the absolute death zone for consumer trust. The moment the buyer sees that manufactured urgency, they categorize the dealership as untrustworthy.
Okay, I have to jump in here and play the
Okay.
role of the old school sales manager for a second.
Go for it.
Because if I'm running a dealership floor and I've got 10 salespeople sitting around drinking coffee and staring at their phones, I want bodies. I want the phones ringing.
Sure.
So what if the leads are low intent? If I'm paying $10 a lead, shouldn't my team just roll up their sleeves, hit the phones, and sift through the dirt to find the gold? And I mean, give me the cheap leads and let my team do their job.
That is the exact philosophy that keeps this entire machine running, and honestly, it sounds completely logical on paper. But it ignores the real-world danger of low-friction lead forms and the resulting operational drag. Let's look at the actual mechanics of a metal lead form. The reason they are so seductive to marketers is that they drastically reduce friction.
Because you don't have to leave the app.
Exactly. You don't leave Facebook. Your name, email, and phone number autofill from your profile. You literally just tap a button.
But the easier it is to submit the lead, the less the action actually proves, right?
Yes. A thumb tap, while you are like half watching Netflix on your couch, shows near zero intent compared to someone who deliberately navigates to a dealership's website, clicks on a specific stock number, and calculates a financing term.
That makes sense.
So when the general manager demands high volume, the vendor turns on the low-friction lead forms.
And the dealership ends up paying a double cost for those bad campaigns.
Exactly. They pay twice. They pay the first time in the actual ad spend, giving thousands of dollars to Meta. But the second cost is the operational drag, which is far more expensive.
Okay.
We are talking about payroll, attention, and lost opportunity.
Break down that downward spiral for the sales floor. Like, what happens when those 300 cheap leads actually hit the CRM?
It completely destroys sales morale. The business development center, the BDC, or the sales floor gets this massive list of leads. On day one, they hit the phones hard.
Right.
But they quickly realize half the numbers are disconnected or just go straight to voicemail. Then they finally get people on the phone, and their responses are completely disorienting.
Like what? What do they say?
The customer says, I was just curious what the payment would be. Or, wait, I didn't want to buy a car. I thought I want a voucher. Or simply, stop calling me. I didn't fill that out.
Because the friction was so low, the customer didn't even register that they were submitting a lead to a car dealership.
Yes. And human psychology kicks in. The sales floor becomes conditioned to distrust leads from the marketing department.
They just think they're all junk.
Right. They start treating all CRM alerts as a waste of time. They stop calling quickly. They stop following up. And the ultimate tragedy of this cycle is that when a genuinely good lead does come through, someone who actually wants to buy a car today, they get mishandled because the salesperson assumes it's just another junk Facebook lead.
That is the ultimate hidden tax. A vendor will walk into a meeting and proudly report the cost per lead has dropped to $12. But they never measure the cost per interruption.
Never.
They don't track the salesperson who just burned 45 minutes trying to chase down a customer who was never going to buy, while a real walk-in customer sat ignored in the showroom.
And this is why dealership leadership has to elevate the conversation beyond vanity metrics. A general manager shouldn't care about cost per lead or reach.
What should they care about?
They need to look at cost per sold unit. They need to analyze the lead to appointment conversion ratio. I mean, if you generate 300 leads and only 2 show up for an appointment, the campaign is a failure, regardless of how cheap those 300 leads were to acquire.
But to generate that massive volume of cheap leads in the first place, vendors rely on a very specific psychological trap: manufactured urgency.
It is the defining characteristic of the Facebook sales event.
The buzzwords are everywhere. Today only. Limited spots available. Final hours. Manager authorized private sale. Claim your voucher before it expires.
Urgency is a phenomenal marketing tool when it is authentic.
Right.
If a manufacturer is ending a phenomenal 0% APR financing program on Monday at 5 p.m., telling the customer you have 48 hours left is actually helpful. It's real. But manufactured urgency is poisonous.
It's just a trick.
Exactly. It operates on a simple, deceptive promise designed entirely to force a hand raise from the customer.
The ad makes this wild, sweeping promise of a massive discount or an impossibly low payment, and then completely leaves the local dealership to clean up the mess when the customer actually arrives.
The handoff is brutal. The customer walks in expecting a $299 a month payment on a top-trim truck because the ad implied it. And the salesperson has to break the news that the advertised payment requires $10,000 down, an 800 credit score, and only applied to one specific stock number that sold 3 days ago.
Which moves this from a marketing annoyance directly into legal jeopardy. Regulators are not treating this as a theoretical problem anymore.
Not at all.
The Federal Trade Commission is watching this space with a microscope. We are talking about crackdowns on unusually low advertised prices, bait-and-switch tactics, and hiding required fees.
The regulatory environment around automotive advertising is tightening significantly. In 2026, the FTC sent formal warning letters to 97 auto groups.
97? That's a lot.
It is. And they were specifically targeting the exact behaviors we are talking about. Advertising discounts that are not available to the general public, or advertising vehicles that are not actually in stock just to drive foot traffic.
And we have to talk about the CARS rule here, the Combating Auto Retail Scams rule. This was a major initiative by the FTC aimed directly at bait-and-switch claims involving vehicle cost, financing terms, and actual vehicle availability.
Now, objectively, it is important to note the legal status of the CARS rule. It was actually thrown out by the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals on procedural grounds.
Right.
This happened after strong legal challenges by the National Automobile Dealers Association and a Texas dealer group. The court ruled the FTC didn't follow the proper procedural steps in implementing the rule.
But the dismissal of the rule on a technicality doesn't mean the FTC just packed up and went home.
Right. Not at all. The FTC still has broad authority under Section 5 of the FTC Act, which prohibits unfair or deceptive acts or practices. The underlying enforcement focus on bait-and-switch tactics, limited availability disclaimers, and hidden conditions, it remains a top priority.
Yeah, they're still watching.
Regulators are still heavily scrutinizing how payment claims are made on social media.
It sets up this incredibly dangerous disconnect. The vendor running the template calls it a campaign. The FTC regulator, looking at the fine print, calls it an advertisement. But the educated customer who gets lured into the showroom by manufactured urgency and hidden terms, they just call it a lie.
That is the bottom line. It destroys the brand equity of the dealership in their local community.
So if we know these campaigns destroy sales floor morale, if we know they alienate the highly educated modern consumer, and we know they attract FTC scrutiny, how is this allowed to be the industry standard? How does this keep happening?
The answer lies in the infrastructure of the automotive marketing industry itself, specifically a model known as the white label factory.
The white label factory?
Yes. It is a business model that relies entirely on standardization and volume rather than localized dealership context.
Walk me through how the white label factory actually operates. Because the person standing in the dealership presenting the monthly ad results is often not the person who actually built the ads, right?
Very often, they have no hand in it whatsoever. The economics of a marketing agency dictate that custom creative is expensive. If an agency has to build a unique, thoughtful campaign for 500 different dealerships every month, their profit margins shrink.
So instead, they utilize white-labored systems. So they buy a prepackaged template.
They buy the template, they slap the local dealership's logo on it, and they completely outsource the media buying to a third-party fulfillment center, sometimes even overseas.
Wow.
This model rewards massive standardization, but a cookie-cutter template doesn't know the reality of the local store. It is completely divorced from the local market.
It doesn't know that the store has a surplus of heavy-duty trucks that desperately need to move.
Exactly. It doesn't know what credit profiles the store's finance department has strong banking relationships with.
Right.
It doesn't know the demographics or language requirements of the local zip codes. The white label factory only knows how to push a button, deploy the API, and generate a low-intent lead to put on a spreadsheet at the end of the month.
So if a general manager or a dealer principal is listening to this right now, and they have a vendor meeting tomorrow morning, what exact questions do they need to ask to pull the curtain back and stop the bleeding?
Dealership leadership must implement a strict accountability checklist. First, they need to ask point blank, is any part of this campaign outsourced or white labeled? Who is actually pushing the buttons in the ad account?
That's a great question.
Second, are all mandatory fees and limitations clearly and legally disclosed in the primary text of the ad, not hidden 3 clicks away?
Right, avoiding that FTC scrutiny.
Yes. Third, is the vehicle we are pushing actually available on the lot today?
And the final piece is changing how success is measured, right? You have to align the marketing metrics with actual dealership business outcomes.
You measure marketing against NADA data. The National Automobile Dealers Association tracks industry-wide sales performance, financial health, and operational metrics. They track units sold, gross profit per vehicle, and total departmental profitability.
They aren't tracking Facebook likes.
NADA does not track Facebook likes, shares, or cost per lead. Dealerships must demand that their vendors measure success by appointments shown, sold units, and gross profit. If a Facebook sales event cannot be mathematically tied to sold units or measurable pipeline quality, it's not a sales event. It is just content with a budget.
It's just expensive noise.
Mm.
So let's pivot to this solution. What does good actually look like? Because the takeaway here isn't that dealerships should delete their Facebook accounts and stop running social ads. Meta is still an incredibly powerful platform if used correctly.
The platform is fantastic. The alternative is simply to stop insulting the customer. A strong, effective digital campaign should be built around solving a real buyer situation, not just shouting about a weekend blowout.
Give me an example of how that creative looks different. Let's say a dealership wants to target families.
Okay, so instead of a generic SUV blowout sale, you build a targeted campaign around a customer who needs a third-row vehicle because their family is growing. The creative speaks to cargo space, safety features, and the ease of getting car seats in and out.
I like that.
Or you target a customer who currently has a high monthly payment on an older vehicle and wants better refinancing or trade-in options. Or you build a campaign for someone who needs Spanish-language financing help, and you offer them clear, respectful guidance in their preferred language.
It completely flips the dynamic. You are positioning the dealership as an advisor solving a problem, rather than a carnival barker trying to trick them into a tent.
The goal isn't just to make them click a button. The goal is to make the next conversation, the one they have with the salesperson, easier to sell.
Right.
You qualify the buyer before you hand the lead to the sales team. You ask better questions in the ad, you explain the offer clearly, and you set real expectations. That is marketing. Everything else is just a mask.
That is the perfect word to summarize this entire deep dive. It is a mask. The modern automotive Facebook sales event masks weak strategy with really loud, aggressive creative. It masks incredibly low buyer intent with a low cost per lead metric. And ultimately, it masks business failure with marketing activity.
Dealerships do not need more noise. They need truth, they need transparency, and they need accountability from their vendors.
The future of automotive marketing belongs to the dealerships that understand this. It isn't about shouting the loudest or manufacturing the most panic. It is about respecting the intelligence of the modern consumer and producing honest, high-friction conversations that actually lead to sustainable sales.
Absolutely.
I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. Whether you are running a dealership or you are just someone scrolling your feed looking for your next car, if a business's entire digital marketing strategy relies on tricking you into a conversation using manufactured urgency and fine print, what does that say about how they're going to treat you after you sit down in the finance office to sign the paperwork? If the cultural foundation of their marketing is catch them at all costs, does that inevitably become the company culture when you bring your car back in for a simple service appointment? Think about that. Next time you scroll past that shiny row of trucks, the red banners, and that picking countdown clock, remember the machinery that is really operating behind the screen. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.